the government itself has also decided to go further than the IMF has demanded from them. So, just to go through a little bit quickly, and we can talk a little bit more about this later if you like, there are a couple of items which I think stand out when you go through the reform program. I mean, many of these reforms haven't actually been pushed through the system yet. I mean, we're talking about a few reforms that is going to that have started. We're talking about a few reforms that will be done before the end of this year. We're talking about a few reforms that is going to start next year. Some of them early next year, some of them later next year. But we are largely talking about an economic reform program, which is fairly compressed in time, which I think is good, that they're trying to do things which is going to be difficult, but they're trying to do it fairly quickly. So if, for instance, if we look at the reforms they are now doing about energy prices, as some of you know, there has been an unsustainable situation in Ukraine for energy prices, where Ukraine is very import dependent on energy. So they pay an import price for energy, but the household price has been much lower, and they need to find a way to balance that out, to avoid that energy companies are going to be basically run deficits all the time, because they cannot really get the sort of income from households and from business that can cover the costs that they need to pay to the exporters of energy. So what they've done is to move with the first reform, which is going to increase energy prices by 50%, and a second round of energy price liberalization is going to come early next year, when prices are going to go up with another 50%. So we're talking about these are very tough things. I mean, raising energy prices by that degree. Anyway, let me just go through some of these items a little bit more structurally. Part of the reform program concerns the overall macroeconomic framework, and naturally the IMF tends to have a very strong interest in the macroeconomic framework, and to what extent a country that is lending money from the IMF is planning to basically improve the overall conditions for pursuing sound macroeconomic policies that is sustainable and is not going to push a country to a new crisis. So some of the ingredients in what the government has set out to do is to increase independence for the central bank, especially in the setting of how the bank make the decisions, both on interest rates and some of the other more market operations that the central bank do. There's going to be increased transparency in how decisions are taken. That has been a big problem in the past, that it's been difficult for markets and market observers to really understand in what fashion the central bank operates and how it comes to the decisions. We're seeing a specific program for increasing the stability of banks. I think this is a part where Ukraine has really benefited from having a large presence of foreign banks, both West European banks, European banks, and Russian banks that have poured a lot of resources into their subsidiaries in Ukraine in order to avoid bankruptcy. I think that became a very big element in the program, or in the way that they dealt with the banking crisis. But there were lots of banks, and particularly Ukrainian banks, that didn't have that that track or that road for finance. So they had to be rescued. Many of them had to be rescued by the Ukrainian government. But the sort of policies we're looking at here in the new reform program concerns shaping up the